Peace and blessings, Mishpachah. Yes, peace and blessings. We want to hop right in. Yes, we do. We're going to hop right into Genesis 2. And I just want to just make sure that I come on and that we finish, that we continue doing what we're going to do. But it's going to have to be a quick fashion on tonight because there is something pressing that I'd like to do a little bit later. So we're just going to mosey right on into Bereshit, the second chapter. And what we're going to do is we're going to basically, I'm not going to review what it is that we talked about on last night. But of course, as you know, we give all praises to the Most High. We give all praises unto you, Ya'o Ataya Dashe Anaknu Ha'am Shalabrit Shlech. You know that we are the people of your covenant. You know that we love you with all of our hearts. You know that we're dedicated unto you, even though at times we fight battles and struggles and go through real situations in a real world. And we thank you for being there for us in a real way. You are our salvation, our physical deliverance, as you have proven time and time again. I give you praise. May you bless us with open hearts, open eyes, open ears to be able to hear what it is that you are saying and what it is that you are communicating to us in this time, even through these verses of Scripture. Bashem Yah, in your name, Yah, we pray. Aman wa aman. Well, as I always have done, I have, looked to the chat to see who we have with us. And is this from today? Yeah, I believe it is, definitely. All right, happy 4th day, everyone. My brother from another mother is definitely here. He is here, and none other than Burden Pears, who is the chief moderator, and as well, Josh and Penny smoking in the Smokies. I pray for my family. I pray that you all are doing well, and I pray that the Most High will bless you and bless your socks off. I do daily. I do. In a spiritual sense, especially walk under the showers of the blessings of the Most High. I said that little, I don't know, it's a little jumbled, but what I'm trying to communicate is I walk in a way that I expect the blessings of the Most High on a daily basis. I always say that there are a million avenues into my life where the Most High can bring a blessing, where he can bring word of his will and word of what will happen on tomorrow. He can bring warning, he can bring truth, he can bring whatsoever he desires. I do delight in the Most High, despite there are those that would seek to take us away from him by means of giving us information that would lead us astray, but we stand solidly and flat-footedly. We stand upon his word. We stand upon the Tanakh. There are many people standing on other things. They're standing on the Upanishads. They're standing on the Bhagavad Gita. They're standing on the New World Translation. They're standing on the Watchtower. They're standing on a number of different things. But what are you standing on? What are you standing on, right? Right now, there seems to be a lot of warfare, and I'm going to call it warfare only because it is, how can I say it? There are people who are really investing a lot of money in trying to convince the masses that the Tanakh is invalid, and it's invalid because there are similar stories. There are similar stories in other books, and so, hey, you don't need to believe in that. You don't need to follow that. You don't need to stand upon that. Well, we have a scripture, and I know you may well say, well, no, that's circular. You can't use that because that is within itself circular. But our scripture says that unto you have I allowed myself, if you allow me to paraphrase, unto you have I allowed myself to be known of all the families on the earth. And this means that just like someone else may have conducted business with your mom or your dad back in the day, it doesn't mean that they got to sleep in your bed, that they got to eat their food, and that they knew your mom and dad the way that you do. I truly hold that while world cultures and cultural memories were being forged back in the day, I do believe that Israel was not born in a vacuum, that they did not have an ethnogenesis, which was in a vacuum. They were around other people, and they did have a worldview that was secular. Just like we say God, God is secular, right? Well, anyone can say God. Men can say, I am a God. Well, God is just a generic term, but people were using the names of their deities pretty much in the same way. They were using them as titles and so forth and so on. And the Most High did not allow himself to be known. Show me, please, where in some of the other writings that I've mentioned, where the Most High reveals himself to his people the way that he reveals himself unto us, where he speaks of his heart and his mind, where he actually says that he will sing over the people that are his inheritance, the people that is his inheritance. Show me in the Upanishads, show me in all of these other places where that is so. And I will then say, okay, well, maybe we do have some parallels that are stronger than what I thought. But at face value, we know for a fact that Israel was not created nor born in a vacuum. Okay? That being the case, we understand that there are going to be some cultural similarities. There are going to be some things that were even, if you will, borrowed in a sense. Okay? There's going to be lots of things like that. However, I just simply want to say that the Most High, he is with us, and we are standing upon his word, and we're flowing with that. I'm giving shouts out real quick. I know I'm giving shouts out. I started talking. I'm giving shouts out to my brother Bergen Paris, as well as Josh and Penny, and yep, giving shouts out to who do we have next in line here? Oh, my brother George Evans. Peace and blessings to you, my brother George Evans. Also, we have EJ Love in the house. Peace and blessings to you, EJ Love. And glad that you're here, EJ Love. Also, Peter Jourdain is up in the house. Peace and blessings to you, Mr. Jourdain. Let's go ahead and let's just kind of dig into this a little bit. Now, listen, I know that all of you have certainly read the second chapter of Genesis, so I don't need to hit this word by word and verse by verse, but let's talk about it, okay? Let's dig in. Here we go. We see in the beginning of Genesis 2 and 1, that it speaks of the finishing of the heavens and the earth and all the hosts of them. So, in looking at this leads us to believe that chapter 1 and chapter 2 is sequential. In other words, chapter 2 is a sequence of chapter, like a sequel, right? It comes after. Well, it is in sequence with chapter 1. Now, here's where the controversy comes in. The controversy comes in where you begin to look at the literalizations of the creation of man and woman in the first chapter. Okay, while we may look at the first chapter and say, first of all, we note that there is a delineation of what is land and what also is heavens. And then later on within chapter 1, you find out, that is the separation of the seas. That is the separation of the sea from the land. And that is the separation of the waters and the land from the air. And so it's like, okay, well then, that seems then like maybe there was an earth before this earth, and there was a people before us as a people. Well, okay, again, I shared with you on last week that was anachronistic. In other words, it's like someone saying, to give you a reference, that, yeah, he created the heavens and the earth. Well, what else could he call it, right? What else could he call it? And then he explains how the earth was actually made more prominent and given its purpose throughout chapter 1 by means of removing the water from it, establishing order, so forth and so on. Now, just as we have that sequence between Genesis 1:1 and also the body of Genesis chapter 1, we have that same sequence happening here now in the beginning of Genesis 2, where you have, if you will, you have the mention of the finishing of the heavens and the earth, right? And we also have the mention of the creation of man and woman in Genesis 1:26-27. They're given purpose, they're told what to do, right? Well, as we continue, we now, just like in Genesis chapter 1, at first it reads that the heavens and the earth were created, and then they give you specifics about their creation, about what Yah or Elohim said, it is the same way. It is presented to us in the same way in chapter 2, where at first, Genesis chapter 1, verses 25 through 27, speak of the creation of man, okay, and the reasoning behind that. Well, you then look at chapter 2, and just as I said before, you had the presentation and then you have the detail. Chapter 1 is the presentation. Now, chapter 2 is the detail, and they take it to the next level. Now, here's where the controversy comes in. The controversy comes in because individuals say, well, these are actually two creation stories. And you can argue that very, very emphatically that these are two different creation stories. However, what ties it together is that you see in verse number 1 of chapter 2 that it is the finishing of the heavens and the earth that's already noted. Now, I would be suspect if, chapter 2 and verse 1 started off exactly like Genesis 1 and 1. In the beginning, God, then I would have an issue. And I'd say, well, okay, maybe the theory that, that the Yahwist wrote a chapter and the priest wrote another and the priest wrote another verse, maybe the hypothesis is correct. I don't know. I'd have to wonder about that. But you know what? We don't see that, okay? We don't, and I'm talking about the documentary hypothesis where they say, well, all of these different factions within Israel really did write together as a committee, so to speak. And what we're talking about is we're talking about P for the priestly, we're talking about J for the Yahwist, like wherever you see Yahweh, they're saying that was written by other people, okay? There's the Elohists, those who speak of the Most High in the name of Elohim, okay? Those are the Elohists. And then you have people that say, well, they did this as a committee, and the evidence is what they're calling the Most High. Others have said in this controversy that really spans throughout the entirety of the Tanakh that, well, you see, they're actually covering up the fact that Israel was far more polytheistic than what they led on to. It's been basically harmonized and homogenized to make you think that it is monotheistic. In other words, somebody went in and they redacted and they changed a whole bunch of things, and they made it seem as if Israel was always just worshiping one God, but they had a problem every now and then. Oh, but they were just worshiping one God. Well, be that as it may, and that is a topic for another discussion. I could get into that, but we're not going to get into that in the here and in the now. I've got just a few more minutes, but let's point this out. He begins, and again, if you notice, what I'm saying is that this is chapter 2, is the actual continuation, and it's the delineation of everything that's happened. So before you were presented with it happening, and then they gave you the detail. Chapter 1 presented what was happening, and now in chapter 2, they give you the details, okay? So then in looking at it, it reads in verse number 4, it says that these are the generations of the heavens and the earth when they were created in the day that Yah Elohim made the earth and the heavens. And so then it goes into how, the plants and so forth and so on and blah, blah, blah. And there are some things that I would want to mention, but for the sake of brevity, I'm not going to mention them right now because they would lead us, and I would have to explain things that I don't have time for, right? So, hey, allow me to just say this. The important parts of chapter 2 are in that it is a detailed continuation of chapter 1, okay? Now, if you separate them, as many like to do, if you separate them, then you have to make sense. You have to make sense of the supposed first wife of Adam, and then you have to negotiate whether or not that's Lilith or not. And all of these other things begin to come into play when you separate Genesis chapter 1 from Genesis chapter 2. But I'm going to flow with what I see here, being that we have two main connecting parts, and that we have in Genesis chapter 2, verse 1, we have a connection to chapter 1. Also, In Genesis chapter 2, verse 4, we also have another connecting part. And so this lets us know that this is most definitely a continuation. And so it is flowing in sequence. However, it is unfolding, it's blossoming. At first they present it and then they give you the details. Chapter 2 gives us more details than chapter 1. As we continue here, it says that every plant of the field before it was in the earth, and every herb of the field before it grew, okay? It says, for Yah had not caused it to rain upon the earth, and there was not a man to till the ground. There was no one there. So now, how do you say that there were people here? And you say, well, the King James Version says replenish. Well, okay. 2 and 5 says that there was not a man to till the ground. So there was no one here before, okay? And also, aside from that, there should have been some sort of relics, something around that Adam could find if there were other people around there, right? But anyway, let's just continue. Let's continue. And so the Most High did give them a purpose. Adam is fulfilling his purpose, right? And we're led into, again, chapter 2 gives you details. In chapter 1, we're just told of Eden. It said that, well, the Most High planted a garden, okay, eastward in Eden, and yes, he put the man there. It is in chapter 2 that we see this expanding and being expounded upon, and we're actually seeing a description of what Eden was. We're seeing a description. We're seeing that there are a lot of trees. Every tree was made to grow there. We're seeing that a river went out from Eden, right? Now, it reads here that these rivers, okay, that they basically would travel a long way, even like the Euphrates here in verse number 14. And this lets us know that if Euphrates is one of these rivers, then the plateau that was Eden was very, very high. Eden then was not a place that any and everything could just walk in, okay? Which lets you know that we have to rethink certain things when we get to chapter 3. We're going to get to that later. But Eden itself and the garden itself, which is also considered to be the Mount of God or the mountain of Yahweh, okay, the mountain of Elohim. You'll find out that mountains are very prominent in the Israelite worldview and in our culture. It was to the mountains that we went to hear the voice and to hear the law and to receive the law. We went to a mountain for that. Mountains are prominent. Mountains are majestic. Mountains are said to be the house of the Most High. He is called El Shaddai, okay? And long story short, while I could get into a lot of that, let me just simply say mountains were prominent, but Eden and the garden was also a mountain, and the rivers that flowed from the four corners of the garden, they went all over the world, which lets us know that it had to have been a very high plateau. It was a very high plateau. Remember what we mentioned on last week, that Adam was a man of the field and he was brought into the garden, while Chava, or Eve, she was a daughter of that spiritual place called Eden, called the garden, right? The Garden of Eden. Gan Eden, if you want to say it in Hebrew. Looking then here, we see where the Most High did create the woman, okay? And Adam says, you know what, you are bone of my bone and you are flesh of my flesh. We are one and we're going to be one. And it's often said that, well, that this was a rib. In the actual Hebrew, it does not read that the Most High took a rib. It really does denote that he took a side. He took everything from one side. Okay, now this could be figurative, meaning that he took the feminine side of Adam and sculpted a woman, okay, used some of his flesh, used some of his bone, and took that complete side of him so that when he himself would join himself to her and they would walk as one, he would then be made whole. That's where the concept comes from. Some have even posited that, you know what, they were actually like Siamese twins joined together at the hip, and they had to be, separated. Well, see, I don't agree with that. We have some of our rabbinical brothers who believe that because a particular rabbi said it. I don't believe that to be true, because if a person was joined to your hip, you talk about companionship. You got a whole bunch of companionship. I mean, you go to the restroom, you got companionship. You go to sleep at night, you got companionship. I mean, hey, I mean, you're definitely not alone. And I think I'm going to go out on a limb and say, I would think that you would know that you're not alone if you had someone joined together at your hip. Well, with that being the case, I just simply want to say, I don't think that we can posit that in any sort of realm of probability. I do believe that this was something that was psycho-spiritual. I think that this was miraculous. And as it states in the scriptures, in the Tanakh, yes, I think that this was something that was absolutely amazing to Adam. Adam was like, man. I mean, when the Most High presented Eve to Adam, I bet his jaw dropped. He was like, man, God, you are good. Because I believe Hava was everything, like that song, I'm every woman, it's only me. Hava could have sung that song. She could have sung that song, I'm every woman, it's only me. And I bet she was B-A-double-D, bad to the bone. No pun intended. And I really believe that she was a beautiful creature, okay? And when Adam saw her, he was like, man. And so what I love about it in Hebrew is Hebrew gives you its origins and its understanding, okay? And it kind of lets you know what's going on by even just the word, okay? Because when you look at the word ish and isha, okay, within isha is ish, man, because the woman came out of man, so she is composite of everything that man is, okay? And then she's got extra, which is why I believe that when a baby is being formed, okay, when the fetus is being formed in the womb, it begins as a female. And through the inrush of testosterone at a given point, that is then what turns the female to a male. And then, of course, we get, male and female, right? But just before I open it up for questions, I simply want to just point out that every man in our Hebraic walk, we stand upon the solid foundation that every man has a woman for him and every woman has a man for him, okay? I understand that in Reform Judaism, they allow same-sex relationships. We do not stand upon that foundation, okay? We do not stand upon that foundation. I don't see here where the Most High, where he brought and he created, Bruce and said, okay, I'm going to allow this to be. No. He didn't create Bruce for Adam. He created Chava. He created a woman, and we will flow with what the Most High has done, because according to Ecclesiastes 3:14 and 15, we know that whatsoever the Most High does, it is forever. So even though men may do other things, we stand upon the truth of the Tanakh, and we say that even as Adam had a wife, I'm saying as for me and my house, hey, the men look for women, and the women look for men. That's all I'm saying. Let me do this because I've actually given you a quick synopsis of two, and I know we could go deep into it and talk about many more controversial things and get deep into the Hebrew, but I'm going to leave it right here for right now. I'm going to take a little break, and then I'm going to come back, and we're going to ask for questions. Okay, I'm expediting this because somewhere I got to go. Okay, we are back and we are going to ask the questions. And in doing this, I am going to go into the chat room and we're going to actually, hey, we're going to take a look and see who has a question or two. And then, hey, I think we're going to be out of here, right? I think we're going to be out of here. Let's do this. Let's go ahead and. All right, peace and blessings to my sister, repentant and saved. Peace and blessings to you. And who else snuck in here? Who else? Okay. All right, I think that we are good thus far. Yeah, my brother George Evans says, yeah, that's what I read. It wasn't a rib, but it was of Adam's flesh. Definitely. Peace and blessings to my sister, Hanaya Israel, and her husband. Peace and blessings to you. Peace and blessings to you, my sister. Good to see you. Okay, all right. So then let's, my brother George Evans says, let's get deep into the Hebrew. Listen, I welcome the opportunity to come back once again and to get deep into the Hebrew. There's a lot that I could dig into. There's a lot that I would really want to show you. But nonetheless, hey, unfortunately, I need to truncate our session for tonight, and we need to be a little bit more expeditious of the time. And I'm actually trying to be someplace at 8 p.m. It is now 7, basically 20 minutes to 7 where I'm at. So let me get your questions. What questions do you have? I'm going to give you just a couple of minutes to get your questions if you have a question, okay? We're going to look at a quick commercial. Looks like no one has a question. When I come back, I will give a conclusion if there are no questions, and then we will let you enjoy the rest of your evening. And so here we go. Hi, I'm Melchior Uriel, and I'm so delighted to meet you. I'm glad that you stopped by. I'm glad that you're curious, and I'm glad that you clicked on the video. All right, here we are. We're going to entertain your questions. Go ahead and ask concerning our subject. So let's go ahead, let's do what we do, and let's ask, okay? I do not see any questions, so you know what we're going to do? I'm going to give you my synopsis of chapter 2, and then we are going to skedaddle. How about that? Looking at the flow, if you will, okay? If you look at the Tanakh and you consider its pedagogical flow, you look at it and you say, well, okay, this is definitely different. What do I mean by its flow? When you consider that Genesis 1, as I said before, it is even arranged so that you have chapters, right? You've got chapters in the, verses in the beginning. And these verses actually provide the habitation for what later is filled in the next part of Bereshit, or Genesis chapter 1. Well, just as you have that kind of a leapfrogging of purpose, you also have somewhat of the same thing in chapter 2, where even as in chapter 1, it gave you what was going to happen, and then it gave you some more detail. Chapter 2 is that way for the entirety of chapter 1. There are things that are mentioned in chapter 2 that are not mentioned in chapter 1 that are far more specific. We learned some things that were going on in the mind and in the heart of Adam, and we also understand that according to what we know today in science, what we know today and epigenetics, we know that, things do carry over. Things do carry over genetically. Things that affect us emotionally do carry over genetically, which is why I did a lesson on how Cain, was he a demon seed or was it just simply epigenetics? And so I actually did do that. And so you could look at that video. However, one of the things I want to say is that we get more detail. We get into the psyche, some things that were going on with Adam, where the Most High had to actually say, "Hey, man, look, kind of like the same when he said to Cain, Cain, you got issues, buddy. We need to talk about your issues." It was the same thing with Adam, except the Most High stepped in and intervened in a way that he did not for Cain, because only he could solve the problem with Adam. I've always said that Adam did not perceive who he was within. He did not perceive that he was complete. And the Most High had to take out of him what was already in him and confront him with it in the form of another individual before Adam would accept the fact that he himself was not alone. Understanding the monotheistic motif that we get in the Tanakh, we understand that there had to have been some understanding where the Most High would say, "Hey, he's like me, right? I'm self-sufficient, so therefore I have to bring him into a level of self-sufficiency." It's just that because of Adam's inability to perceive who he was, meaning his feminine side and meaning that other dimension of his personality and being, the Most High created Chava, and of course, the rest we know to be history. My sister Jacqueline E. Bugs, blessings to you, my sister. She says, Cain had the seed of jealousy. Many people are carriers of that seed. Many people are carriers of that seed, and that's why there is a prescription for jealousy in the Tanakh, which of course you need the temple in order to enact that ritual. But bottom line is, we ourselves understand that there were a lot of things going on that we get glimpses of in chapter 2 that we did not get introduced to in chapter 1. In chapter 1, it is somewhat insinuated that there were some emotional things going on. But hey, bottom line of it is, in chapter 2, we really began to see some things that we did not see in chapter 2. And when we get to chapter 3, it's all going to come to a head. It's all going to come to a head, and then we're going to have to deal with certain issues that we're now beginning to see are kind of poking their heads up here in chapter 2. My brother George Evans says, I got a question about Esau. Didn't he know the Bible as well as anyone else at that time because of who his family was? Well, okay, there wasn't a Bible per se. At best, he would have been given the same stories, if you will, as Abram acted as the griot of his family. He would have received the same teaching, the same tutelage, the same stories, the same cultural memories relayed in stories. He would have received that, okay, just as Jacob would have, okay? And while it's true, you're right, my sister, he was a man of the field. But I know some guys that are men of the field, in other words, hunters, that are pretty sharp. I'm talking about academically, pretty sharp. But long story short, looking at chapter 2 of Genesis, now I don't want to go too far beyond the chapter 2 of Genesis, only because we'd be here all night. And as I mentioned, I do have some place that I am trying to be. But no, you're good, my brother George Evans. You're all right. You're all right. And the issue, okay, because you bring this up, my brother George Evans. You said, hey, not the Bible, but the laws of the Most High. The Most High always makes sure that the laws and the instructions are given to those of his focus. He gives his law. He shares his law, right? How do we know this to be true? We know this because the Most High tells Noah, I want you to go ahead and, hey, give me so many clean animals and so many unclean. Well, how did he know what was clean and unclean unless there was something already laid down? How did it say in Bereshit or Genesis 26:5 that that Abraham kept my laws, my statutes, and my commandments? Okay, and you're right. There is more to be understood about the transmission. And that is an area that I would really like to focus on at some point in time, the transmission of truth and the transmission, even the prophetic outlay of truth, and how men gleamed what truth was and what the word of the Most High was. And I'm talking about from the standpoint of the Tanakh and not of the New Testament, okay? Well, with that being the case, there is a real, I want to say a real solid and simple path that we could go down to answer those questions, but hey, we don't have time to do that right now. But I would just simply say this: yes, he did have the law, he did have the truth, because it was handed down to everyone, and we know this for a number of different reasons. I'm just going to say this and then let it alone. The Most High would not condemn you or judge you based upon something that you had no idea of, you didn't know about it. He would not condemn you for that, okay? Which is within itself proof that if they are judged and if they are accused of or maybe warned about sin, then they know what is right and they know what is wrong. Okay, which why this is why Cain in Genesis 4:7, he knew the right thing to do. He just chose otherwise. Okay. All right. All right. Are there any other? Going once, going twice. By the way, every one of you need a little bit of kombucha in your life. Okay. Kombucha, it's good for your digestive system. Every one of you needs some of that. All right. Yah only Tanakh study. Peace and blessings to you, my brother. All right. So you know what? We have no more questions. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to thank you for your time. I'm going to thank you for your attention, as I always do. May you continue to walk in the Most High and be blessed of the Most High, because you are blessed coming in. You are blessed going out. I want you to know that you are no longer cursed. Okay? You are no longer cursed. Israel is blessed, and it is our time for us to be blessed. And it is time that the blood of the righteous is no more shed, but now the Most High will come and he will begin to shed the blood of the wicked. He will bring judgments and bring his wrath upon the face, upon the head of the wicked, and he shall punish them, and they shall receive of all that they are deserving, for it is time for the righteous to arise. Most definitely, I want to say that the Most High will continue to bless you if you walk with him. Love him with all of your heart. I'm Malki Uriel. I love each and every one of you. I love you, my family. I'm so glad and delighted that you are here. You give me the honor of teaching you and communing with you on a weekly basis, and I look forward to it, and I love you all. So, peace and blessings to you. This is it for now. May the Most High smile on you. And Yah willing, we will see you for Shabbat morning coffee. All right? All right, peace and blessings to you. I love you all, and may the Most High smile on you. Hey, I'm out.